welcome everyone to this amazing session with Rukmini, Reddy, and Steve Wood. I'll start off with a quick intro. I'm a Senior Director of Engineering at WeWork. And yeah, my name is Veena. I didn't start there. So I'm very happy to chat with Rukmini and Steve and get to know how they've been onboarding into Slack and how they're fostering collaboration across the product engineering groups. So with that, quick intros from Steve and then Rukmini.
Sure. Steve Wood, he, him. I am the VP of Product here at Slack for the platform.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rukmini. My pronouns are she, her. VP of Engineering Platform at Slack. And fun fact about me, obsessed with Bollywood dancing and also mom to 8-year-old twins. So really appreciated Chris's Hold the Juice Box subreddit. I'm going to go check it out after.
I have no fun facts. This is terrible. But anyway.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Rukmini. So we're going to kick off with a few questions. And the first one, I think I recently learned, talking to Steve and Rukmini, that they both joined Slack during the pandemic times and during the COVID times. So the first question I wanted to ask them is about, as you both started last year and trying to lead remote first teams, what rituals have you both found effective to onboard yourself and get to know your teams better?
Steve, why don't you go first?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I suppose I don't know. Rituals. I don't want to kind of go with the same ones. Maybe. But mainly for me, it's been about kind of trying to build social capital and trust. So I suppose, like in meetings, I suppose I've said this before, but like I've been less rigorous about schedule. So we have like this sort of, if things are just like kind of getting to know each other, that's okay. We can always reschedule a meeting, but kind of just letting conversations flow a little bit more than maybe you typically do in a meeting. That'd be one kind of thing that it's not so much a ritual, but something I've kind of tried to do. But I do think, like, I think both Rukmini and I have shared the same thing. We really have to build trust quickly with the teams. Anything that can help build that sense of trust and empathy is super important. So kind of, I think I've tried to be very open with the team about like what I know and what I don't know. And maybe like just really trying to like be a little bit more vulnerable than a leader would typically be in this kind of environment has been something I've been routinely not trying to do. I think I've always been a little bit like that, but I think it's been more important now than it's ever been. So I don't know. With me, you probably have a better answer.
Yeah, I think so. Just imagine I started 3 weeks after Steve, no context of having met anyone in person. And this was last July. So when we were really unsure of our future and what health and safety of everyone around us would be. And a few things that we started off, I think, in the beginning of this relationship was having some like rules of engagement, like what are the top three things that matter to us as product and engineering leaders. And we discussed shared view of reality that both of us need to align on where do we stand today as leaders and where is the rest of our organization. That was something we had to align on first thing, right? Second thing was flow of information. The information I get as an engineering leader, like for example, if a project's going to be delayed or I'm hiring a new engineer or someone's leaving, a delivery, execution, and the information Steve gets, which is like what's top of mind for the business, what's our product strategy like, vision like, and it's kind of different information. And we don't see each other every day. We don't have like a physical space that we share together anymore. So it became very important for us to actually build in this ritual every day of a 15-minute check-in. We said we would hold each other's virtual hands as we onboarded together remotely, and we would do it on a 15-minute Zoom session every day. And we're way past onboarding, and we still continue our 15-minute daily quick syncs. And I think it's to keep that information flowing. And what that these first two principles have allowed us to do is actually have a shared success. Like our success is the success of our product design and engineering teams together. There could be a view where engineers meet every single item on their backlog and every milestone, and still we don't have a successful product, right? So it's very important. And these rituals of like staying in touch so we can have shared alignment, shared success, shared view of reality, and keep information flowing have been critical to our onboarding experience.
Yeah, there was what was interesting about that, Veena, is actually we first started that 15-minute sync is like, let's do it for the first week or two, and then like many months in, we're still like, we still fill the full 15 minutes with alignment. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
it's like your
valuable.
leadership stand up, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
Actually,
an
now that you put it that way, it is a daily
yeah,
stand up. That's
yeah.
true. We discuss
Awesome.
blockers and how to move forward.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So the follow up, I think it's we all love Slack. We big fan. Pretty sure that you can see the same thing from the audience. And recently, as I said, we in the last 18 months we moved away. In our way of working has changed. So how is can you talk a bit about how Slack is kind of internally, what kind of channels there you all are using to kind of work in this reality where you don't have actual physical presence in the office anymore. So you talked about, of course, doing Zoom chats and doing stand-ups, virtually holding hands. Can you elaborate more on what other processes or things that have, your engineering teams and product teams have adopted in this?
So we dog food. I think one thing that's really unique and great about Slack is we dog food our product all the time. Like we live and breathe our product. And for example, Steve and I lead the team that builds Slack's workflow builder. So workflow builder is a great way to automate your processes, and a daily stand up would be a great example of something we could use workflow builder for. And what we do is we want to be available to our people, right? Like we want to be a high touch leadership team. That's what we aspire to be. And using our own product, for example, we have a channel that's called Platform AMA, and anyone on our team is able to ask us a question at any time using our product. And Steve and I are able to respond asynchronously to them. Like it's hard to like get people together to share a virtual space to have an all hands, right? Like most parents, like our situation has been dire these past 18 months. So it's hard to get lifetime with the team. So we've used our own product to help with that. We also have like various channels where we post, like, for example, our team, if anything, we've realized we have to celebrate more in the last year and a half. Like our lives feel void of celebration and joy, and it's really important to keep the team engaged and aligned. So we have a thread that it's a weekly thread. It's called Awesome Sauce Platform, Awesome Sauce Time, and all the thread is it's all the goodness. It's everyone giving everyone else kudos for something they did that was amazing that week. So rituals like this, like small ways of dog fooding your product, but I'm sure you can take it away and do something that works for you, making sure you're visible and approachable to your team and remembering to celebrate. Steve, would you like to add some other rituals?
yeah, for sure. Actually, I remember when we started. So first, I did a terrible job of onboarding when Rukmini came. I think she emailed me and I didn't reply. But I'm going to blame it on like Slack. Is just like you get so used to working, you forget about that old thing called email. That wasn't a sales pitch. I literally did forget to do that. But the I think like we also came in during a period of like what we might call creative destruction of Slack. We were sort of brought in to really tear things down and then rebuild them back up. And part of the thing that was challenging for me, I think we both talked about this, is like how to communicate um, openly without thrashing the teams. Because as ideas are evolving, you're sort of used to these sort of structures of like maybe communication sort of easier. You're at the water cooler, you're talking to people, you're doing these things. So it's like hard to know like when should I expose this thinking to a group, and then how do I do that to make sure enough people have heard it to get feedback on it. And it was really hard. So we just kind of decided like, let's just put it out there and like just, do like, hey, this is kind of where we are with the thinking right now. So it was a little different. And it's hard to figure out exactly how to balance that without thrashing the teams. So we've had to be kind of careful on how we've thought about that messaging. We've kind of got like a document where we're tracking the things that we've said to the team over the like weeks or whatever. Just like, okay, we pushed that out, so we don't want to say that again. So we should like push that out and just kind of trying to get that cadence of communication right. But it's been a little different. I think if we'd been in person, that would have been more naturally disseminated. Whereas we've taken to like async video, of course, like posting videos out so people can listen to them in their own time and then provide feedback. It's been pretty good in terms of keeping that open communication that we kind of felt was lost in this new world.
And to just add to that, I think in the world of all hands and alignment and bringing teams together, we've realized that in the past, historically, it would have been like, the executives presenting to an audience. And that just somehow doesn't work in this context. And we kind of rebuilt that and said, this all hands is all about the team. It's about the team sharing what they've done, what they want to show off. What are some wins? What are some challenges? What are some opportunities we've had? So now our platform all hands is basically like, we have all the teams do their demos, talk about what they've built. We give away our mascot is the platypus, which is a very interesting animal, and we have like platinum platypus awards where we actually shout out based on our Slack's collaborative values. Those of us who have like demonstrated them, we have a shout out for them. And most recently, we actually had a llama from some farm in Kansas randomly show up to our all hands. So think about it. That wouldn't have been possible in the previous life when we were not digital first, but it just brought so much joy to people. So think of building a sense of community, like seeing each other's work because we don't have natural avenues to share that anymore, and making it all about the team. It's not about us as executives. It's always about the team.
Well, that was the kind of interesting thing. Yeah, bringing a llama onto the all hands, which was Rukmini's idea, by the way. But it was an absolute hit. Everybody enjoyed it. But it was like if you'd said that pre-pandemic, people would be like, "You're crazy! Like you don't like. Come on, like this is a Zoom call. We don't do stuff
Extraordinary
like that."
times call for extraordinary ideas.
Yeah, so we've definitely seen like having to kind of integrate that kind of fun and upbeat stuff with has been super helpful for team alignment because you can't all just be about work.
That's awesome. Love it. I mean, plant your ideas into the all hands. And so thanks so much. And I think it's, looking back in the last 18 months, I think all of us have adapted and kind of figured out a ways into working in different styles, hybrid, remote, etc. But there's always more to do, isn't it? As leaders, and there's always a part of you that craves to have personal contact and go back to some sort of the reality we had before pandemic. So my the third question, maybe we'll take more questions from the audience after this, is around to kind of lead with empathy. Rukmini stressed about it in the beginning. It's more important than before ever. What are things you plan to do more in future? Some ideas from you, Steve and Rukmini, to kind of keep this engagement going in a distributed model of working.
Shall I'll try and hit that one. So
Yeah, yeah.
I suppose the one thing that so one observation was it's very hard to understand how people all work together in this world because we have really flattened the org chart. I mean, in the old days, we'd go to Stuart Butterfield's office. I was never there because we both joined remotely, and I've seen it, but it's like this grand office. You'd all line up and go in, and you get a sense of the organizational hierarchy. But now it's not like that. We're all just a window, and kind of like that. We also get that, but that's meant that people who were also outside of the main HQ have felt a much greater sense of equity with the rest of the team and able to establish much greater communication across the board. And we noticed that across the whole org. It's like flattened the entire org chart, but
Yes,
it's
it's a
also
level
meant,
setter. Yeah.
yeah, it is. But it's also been weird to understand. Like normally, when you're in an office, you sit next. Like Rukmini and I would probably sit close together. She'd probably get very tired of sitting next to me, and then just want to go sit somewhere else. But we would, and then we would talk more. But in this virtual world, it's kind of like we're all flattened. So like Rukmini's in the ether in the same way that I'm in the ether for her, and so I've had to kind of think about that organizational side, which is just kind of lost with the physical space. So we had a discussion when we were talking about like offsites, and maybe starting to bring some of those back in, just so we can connect as humans and build some trust and empathy. And what we realized was actually like the inequity of being on a Zoom call versus being in the office physically with people felt like something we were unhappy with. Now that felt like if you can't get everybody to be in a room, including getting everybody to hop on a plane, it feels desperately unfair to have half the team or part of the team on a Zoom call and the rest all benefiting from in person. So we kind of had that conversation. We never would have had that conversation before, I don't think, around empathy for those who can't be there in person.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Another thing is like, how do you empower your team in this world where the organization structure and hierarchy is completely flattened, which is great for equity? How do you empower your team to move quickly and be able to make decisions? So something that works really well for us, for example, is we use the React G, Slack React G, and we are running a large initiative, and it's we tell the team, like, every time you make a decision, use the gavel emoji, and then we stream all of that into an Excel spreadsheet. And if it's a one-way door, specify like if it's a one-way door, right? And what this allows us to do is we are able to empower our teams and give them accountability to move forward. At the same time, if there's something that we need to like pay more attention to in this really fast moving world, we're able to. So setting up tools to empower your teams to move ahead without having to like you being the roadblock as the executive or the leader of the team is extremely critical for the success.
Yeah, I
And that's
think
when we
actually
use empathy.
I was also I remember Rukmini also set up this day C side of driver, approver, contributor, informed, that kind of framework, which before it kind of took on a new meaning. I think it really allowed the teams to feel super empowered, particularly given there isn't that kind of in that office environment to really understand who needs to be in the loop and communicate. So I think we leaned into that stuff, and empowering decision making, the example that Rukmini just mentioned, I think was really needed to drive that autonomy. We kind of had to figure out this sort of virtualized, flattened environment, but also kind of be clear on how communication needs to work. So we've been spending a bit of, yeah, like trying to introduce these frameworks. And I think we didn't bring them in because they worked in the old world, so they should work in the new world. We brought them in purposely because, like, actually, you know what we need? We need one of those. And actually, we need it for this reason very specifically. I'd like to actually help us understand and orient ourselves in the organization. So yeah, it's been interesting.
It's awesome. I mean, yeah, I mean, like product engineering, data, they're all, it seems like they're using Slack and various other tools to collaborate. So to the last question, I think I just something I want to know what's on your mind in terms of in the next 1 year for what you would do to kind of know Rukmini better, or Rukmini would do to know Steve better in these times? Anything that you've planned in terms of doing? This is an on the spot question I was
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about.
So I think it's very important to bring people together intentionally. Like the old world of like getting everyone to the office. Like if you is this important enough to get on a plane? If it is not, we shouldn't. Like we should make it equitable. But at the same time, making those very intentional social experiences, creating them and crafting them for your team is super important. Another thing is having empathy. Everyone is in a very different situation and position to like re-enter the workspace, and when is it safe for them to re-enter? So I think it's our responsibility as leaders to make sure we have those conversations with our people. Personalized conversations that you owe to your directs, like what is your comfort level, right? If there was a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with this re-entry? And
Yeah.
that's the way we move forward. And I'm excited for that. I think I'm hopeful, and let's see what the next year brings.
Yeah, very well said. The audience is doing plus ones to just having empathy and understanding where everyone is. It's a different world. Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much, Steve. Any last thoughts before we get to the audience question?
No, just reiterating that. I mean, it's been a challenge as I think as leaders and managers to really understand what good team performance looks like, and so like everybody's struggling with something, and it's hard to it's hard to really sort of know how to hard to drive people. But in terms of getting to know Rukmini, I don't know. We've been out for a cocktail or two. That was definitely fun. So
That's good.
um, it always
Awesome.
helps.
Always helps, right? Yeah, the old school way of doing and getting to know people never dies. Awesome. So with that, I think we'd love to see if there are any audience questions, and we could take one. Just relaying some feedback. Shannon says plus one to having empathy, so critical to being a good leader. Um, thank you so much, Shannon. Here's more. Um, there's one here. Is there any questions coming up on the?
Yeah, there is a
Oh,
question
there
about.
are. Awesome. There are. Awesome. The first question. Shannon, there are 20 votes to it, so we'll go with yours. Can you describe how you align on roadmap planning processes? What are the key steps you cannot miss?
So, roadmap planning, I think for us, what's been incredibly successful is to make it a bottoms up approach. Like we set the vision and strategy, and we empowered our teams to drive them bottom up. For example, all our teams like spend a lot of like time brainstorming and strategizing on what we set the OKRs, and we let them go and say what is the project they want to do, and they come and present to Steve and I, and we gather feedback across all these teams. focus is extremely important, right? We want to do all the things. If you ask product managers, they always want to do all the things. And it's, I think one thing that's been our mantra is less dilution, more focus. How do we keep our teams focused when there's so much going on in the world around us? Like, so for example, we all take a vote, just like you're upvoting here. We have a score, a calculated score we use for initiatives, and we have like 5 or 6 parameters, and we have a very data driven conversation of stack ranking everything across. And yeah, that's, it's been working really well for us. It's very bottoms up. The team is very engaged, and we kind of co-create our roadmap and our OKRs together.
There's a very interesting follow question, and it's something that I always keep thinking. How far out do you plan, and what level of confidence do you have when planning?
Steve, you want
I,
to take that?
well, so interestingly, at Slack, actually, we don't plan that far out because a lot of what we do is experimentation because we're very product led. Whereas with Salesforce, we tended to plan very far out because it was very much like about showing the enterprise where we were going. But yeah, we don't plan that far out. But
We
I
have a
suppose.
vision, though. We have a vision for the next 18 months minimum. And one of our product principles at Slack is prototype the path to production. And I
Mhm.
think it's really important to like not buy yourself, tie yourself too hard into some future plans and prevent yourself from changing. An extremely important part of the planning process is having the flexibility to evolve and change, right? So we definitely have like at least a quarter or two of plans, and then we try to prototype our way there.
Yeah, that's always amazing to hear that there's flexibility in some of the plans as we go. There's another question here from Shannon. I'll get to you, Rala Haddad. Thank you, Rala. How do you foster collaboration between your teams when the teams are spread across different time zones? And of course, there are so many different projects and priorities going on. What's worked? Yeah.
Keeping the teams whole and together is extremely important. Relationships matter, and in a world like this, like the time amount of time you're going to take to build trust is going to, you if you keep moving and like treating people like just resources and cutting and slicing and dicing them, you're not going to be able to make progress on your goals. So trying to keep people, a group of people who work really well together so that they can execute on the different projects and priorities is critical. From a time zone perspective, we actually have a team in India and APAC, and we actually move we have a new hire welcome brunch, which is like time zone friendly. Depends on where most of the new hires are from. It's India friendly. We do a small hands for each geolocation, so they have access to us outside. So it's, you have to be flexible, and you. I think again, we dog food our product really well, and a lot of our communication is asynchronous. So our teams for demos are able to like drop like their demos in channel. We have a platform demos thread, and that's where all the demos get shared, so you don't actually have to be available for a live demo time. You can participate in it asynchronously at a time zone that works for you.
Love it. Async it is.
Yeah,
Steve, anything to add?
I was just gonna say, like, I think you just add to with me. I think it's like, yeah, it's autonomy and focus and role clarity. Because I think with like just making sure the team really know what they're there to be doing, and like I think that is more important than ever because they're not going to get that by bumping into other teams in the office and figuring it out a little bit. So we have to be much clearer as leaders on what our expectations are from them. But in the collaboration side, I feel like that's like it's almost, I don't know. Cal once said this well, probably butcher Cal's quote, who's the co-founder of Slack. He's like, what engineers really want to do is ship things more than anything. And so I think if people feel clear and focused on what they're meant to be shipping and doing, and that goes for product too, there's an enormous sense of achievement there. But that's kind of like the best way to get people, collaborating and working well together. Um,
Yeah. Nothing cures like shipping, to quote Cal.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, totally get it. Yeah. And then I think there's another question here. I'd like to Max Trischler is asking, what are some anti-patterns of cross-functional collaboration you've seen, and how do you tackle them? Like, especially during these times. It's a very interesting question. Thank you, Max.
I mean, I remember Plato's Elevate conference a couple of years ago, and I think then Slack's VP of engineering, Michael Locke, was on stage, and he said something like, he asked this audience question. He said, how many engineering leaders here have a great relationship with their product partners? And almost like, I think 3 of us raised their hands, right? I think that's an anti-pattern. Your success is your product partner's success, is your design partner's success. There is no siloed success in a cross-functional, especially product or platform engineering team. I think that's extremely important. The second thing I would say is I made this mistake early on in my career. Like, I remember we were slipping deadlines, and then my CEO called me in and he was like, Rukmini, why are we slipping deadlines? And then I gave him all the reasoning why and all the backup options. And then he immediately looked to my then product partner, Manfred, and he was like, what do you think about it? And Manfred's like, oh, Rukmini is right. And then I realized I had let Manfred down because I hadn't given him a heads up. He didn't know that I was actually, so that was a moment for me in my own career where it's like I caught him blindsided, and how he felt about it and whether we were aligned is extremely important. So that's an anti-pattern. Please don't do that. I learned it the hard way, and he was incredibly gracious and kind to move forward and just make the most. So trust is extremely important. Steve, any anti-patterns come to your mind?
No, really, no. I love the question, but yeah, no. For me, like trust, like it all comes down to like trust. I mean, if the teams feel a sense of trust with each other, it works a lot better. I mean, like we've worked very hard to remove the politic from our work in the sense that with me and I are very open and honest with each other about where we're doing and where we're doing and what we need to get done. And I think that that works really well because we can actually. I mean, it's been fantastic for me, particularly like having sharing my org issues with Rukmini, so she can kind of help coach me in terms of how I can improve, the people within my group. So it definitely becomes a collaborative, team-based, one team approach as opposed to, hey, I've got my product managers, I need to protect my realm, and you've got your engineer. It was just simply not like that. We're both just trying to go, okay, all right, your product people aren't working very well here. How can we help develop them? Rukmini sort of does maybe even doing some mentoring in there or whatever it might be, but we eventually kind of get it all to work. And I think that's like a really strong sense
Yeah.
of like us, which works particularly well now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can't stress enough about trust. And then as you're trying to build a trust, transparency, not creating transparency is an anti-pattern. Just share it out. People will consume as much as they want. And sometimes, be very intentional about communication. And sometimes you have to do reinforcing communication, especially during these, times of remote and distributed. I feel like you have to say this, it's not like you say it once and it gets in. You
Oh,
might have to say it many times in different ways and
a hundred
reinforce.
percent.
Yeah.
You have
So
to say
I
it a
think,
hundred times, and then
yeah,
somebody
right.
will heard it.
So anybody who feels like, if you're over communicating, I don't think it is true. So feel free to like figure out like what is the right balance. So anti patterns to me is like, just feeling, oh, we've communicated once and we're done. So few things I wanted to add. Thank you so much. There's another interesting question here I was reading about is from Mark Steinberg. Do you think it's better to promote hybrid office environment or to promote the lower common base, which is remote? So basically, remote first, completely remote, or do you want to do more of a hybrid? I know Slack took a stance before. I mean, not in particular about Slack in general. If you think about how product engineering is highly collaborative, as you said, Rukmini, everybody's success is kind of collectively managed together. Where do you think, like, even from your personal point of view, not just from Slack, what would you look at from promoting hybrid or going forward, or you feel remote's kind of worked?
So Slack is our HQ, like period. I think that's our headquarters. It's our product. That's our headquarters. It's not the actual physical building on 500
The
houses.
virtual, yeah, Slack, yeah,
It's I think if anything, being remote actually offers, like Steve said, it's more inclusive. As a parent, for example, I don't have to, if I had a support system and I lived in the South somewhere and I had grandparents around to help me raise my kids, I don't now have to pick up and pack up and move to the Silicon Valley so I can have opportunity and I can have access to tech. And I think that is something it happened much quicker than we were originally expecting it to happen. And I think it's something we have to stay, like, continue. That's the only way to move forward. There's so much talent around the world, and we should have access to that talent. And we should be very, very intentional about bringing people together. If you think about it, early pandemic days when we were making sourdough starters and everybody was baking or biking or building, I think these were the three hobbies everyone had. We had a lot of social capital, and that social capital is eroded. So it's really important to create genuine connection experiences for people. So if it's bringing your team together for a team week, maybe once a year, so they can connect socially and have context, I think that's the way to work.
yeah.
Yeah,
One
I agree
time
with
or
you.
8 times a year, whatever works.
Whatever works for your
But
team.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
do agree with Rukmini. I think that's going to be the redefinition of the physical office environment, and people aren't going to see it as a place to sit with a desk and work.
Yeah.
I think that era is out. I think it's hybrid office is going to sound like paperless office in 10 years from now, where it's just like what paperless office? Of course we don't. Like and people will see offices where you go to collaborate very specifically and intentionally, and bring people together to build trust and empathy and all. It won't be a place just to hang out to type words into computers.
awesome. With that, I think we're out of time. And I really want to thank everyone in the audience, as well as Rukmini and Steve. I really enjoyed listening to all of this. And I'm sure I've taken a lot of tips back to implement in my own teams. So we'll still be in the launch area. Rukmini and Steve and I will be hanging out for another 15 minutes. So, I mean, we'll be happy to take more questions there. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, Veena.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.